NFL podcast. Doesn't do purple.
History. History, bitches. Welcome to the Around the NFL podcast. The first ever Week 18 preview. Rejoice! Dan Hanzus here with Gregg Rosenthal and Marc Sessler, my heroes. Get excited.
Hey, I don't care if it's the first week 18 or not. Like, just it's worth rejoicing that we've hit the end of the regular season. This is a flashpoint. It's the beginning of the end, you know? It's of the end of this year. The playoffs are better. Our little weekly format will slightly change next week. These are all things to celebrate, as are the retirement of all these teams out there that we no longer want to talk about, at least their 2021 seasons.
Yeah, I think that some of them, we've tried to give every team its due to some degree, but when you really, really rot, the storylines become a bit, redone, overcooked, and we are ready to send some of them back into the kitchen. Let's work on this dish again and present it in 2022.
Yeah, that's well said, Marc. I think it is part of the cycle. Every team must die. Some don't die until Super Bowl Sunday. Only one team could be immortal and live forever. So I know this is, by the time you get to this part of the season, if you're going to be because we're not going to, some of the games, we have all 32 teams playing on Sunday. And, not all these games are bangers. A lot of these games are going to feature two teams that gain nothing other than worst draft position by winning. So not every team's going to get the love that you may want. But at the same time, you're probably burned out on this team if they're already eliminated. Then you get to spin forward to the pods in a couple of weeks, a month or so, when it's all reborn. It's all reborn. That's the cycle of life. That's the cycle of the NFL. It's
very organic. And, I know for some people that have been following a team that, died 2 or 3 months ago, I'm adding a little element just to this Week 18 preview, Dan. Like, it's just a little bit of spice. Each game will have its own unique tagline. And why I'm doing this is because a lot of our listeners love to communicate with us on a Sunday, for instance, about, let's say, the Jets-Bills game. And they go into rich detail trying to get our attention with, Jets quarterback Zach Wilson threw a real zinger right there. Beautiful out pattern and a completion. Like, don't even worry about that. What you do is, because we diligently look at every tweet that comes our way.
Sure. Each
game will have a very succinct tagline. You just simply say, like, guy in green threw nice pass. Then you insert the tagline that I will give you before the Jets-Bills game, for instance, and we'll sort it out on our own time. If I see the tagline, I'll say, oh, guy in green must be Zach Wilson. You don't need to add the rich detail. We will do the work for you, if that makes any sense at all.
Did you follow that, Gregg? I wasn't all the way there, but
not total sense. But I like the idea that Marc's got a new bit and that he's got a tagline for each game. I don't really need to get into the Twitter of it all personally. That's for the listeners.
We may not, that part of the bargain we may not hold up, but you will get a tagline for each game.
I would have said, like,
also, guy in green seems a lot harder to write than Zach Wilson, so I'm not sure what you're getting out of that. I don't know if that's helping.
Right, that part of it needs maybe a little bit of workshopping, but with suddenly it was noon here and we're taping, so.
And just like in the spirit of unsolicited advice here, if you're setting up a bit thusly, just say, I got taglines for each game.
Yeah, I mean, how I like to add a layer of complexity that maybe I've not thought out completely myself to muddle the show, slow it down, and leave us in an awkward place. So mission accomplished.
Okay. It's okay. I'm looking forward to it. We're all looking forward to it. And I should correct myself. Not every game is on Sunday. We have 2 games on Saturday. No Thursday night football. No Monday night football. But 2 games Saturday. So we're going to do our draft, as we always do, for the last time this season. And let's start with the Saturday games. I guess we'll hold the Saturday games and the Sunday night football game out of the draft. That makes sense, right?
I think that does, yeah.
So let's start with the Chiefs at Denver Broncos. The Chiefs coming off a disappointing loss at Cincinnati, but let's not get too lost in the weeds here. They were on an 8-game winning streak before that game. They got picked off by a field goal against a team that just was playing out of its mind on offense, and now they get the Broncos. I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater's ever going to come back this season. I don't know where they're at.
No, he's on IR. He's
okay. So they
out.
just moved Teddy out. Drew Lock's got a bad shoulder. We'll see if he's playing. But Gregg, we'll start this way. I don't know if this game's going to be able to tell us anything about the defense, but did what happened against the Bengals kind of shake your confidence in Kansas City's ability to get a big spot in a couple weeks?
No, because it was Steve Spagnuolo believing in his system like a little too much in the wrong matchup. I think if they played the Bengals again, they should play it differently. Like don't leave the guys in man coverage. But overall, they're a good defense. They're not a great defense. I don't think any of these AFC defenses are incredible. The bigger takeaway for me for that game was their offense looks as good as it looks all season. And so does Patrick Mahomes. Even the stops in the second half, if you go through each one, there were reasons for it. For the most part, he looks as comfortable, as confident as Patrick Mahomes as he's been all year. And the offensive line is so good, and they have depth. Like, they were down a couple players last week, and they played awesome. More than any time all year, I actually feel like the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and it makes sense. This is a team that's made it to a couple straight Super Bowls here. Maybe they're cranking it up at the end of the year. They're 5-0 against Vic Fangio, by the way. There's no Patrick Surtain. There's no Ronald Darby in this game. They could not make this line big enough. It was 10 points I saw earlier. I guess I'm going to have to make it rain here. I wasn't even planning on that, but God, I feel confident in the Chiefs putting up 45.
Hit the Ranger. Oh, wow. 5-1 this year, right?
6-1. 6-1.
Hamina. Good for you. And yeah,
that was impulsive, but I do feel that very strongly. They would be one of my top 2 or 3 for sure.
It's interesting, Gregg, because the Rainmaker's doing so well, and yet your struggles in the lock competition continue to the point where you lock the Browns, and I talked you out of that.
That's
good
true.
thing. So you jump to another team, the Chiefs, and lock them, and they lost too. So as bad as you've been in the locks competition, in the Rainmaker land, you're as hot as ever. Firecracker.
I mean, I've learned by being in various, different ways of picking things over the years. You can be great in some, bad in the other, and it's almost all luck. But
and by the way, Marc isn't sitting out this conversation. He's having some tech difficulties.
I'm sure he'll jump on. Talking. I just was assuming he's going to be back. I don't know.
Yeah, once I heard there was a computer restart involved, I was like, we can't cover for the guy. A little pull back the curtain. Sometimes if there's a tech diff in a big spot, we just roll through it and that person pops back in. But it's been too long. Had to alert the audience. Have no regrets about it. Gregg.
This isn't much of a game anyways, really.
I want to say we should, for all these games in Week 18, the stakes here. The Chiefs will be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And with that, of course, comes the first round bye and home field throughout the conference playoffs. So the Chiefs will be the number 1 seed with a win at Denver. And they're going to win at Denver. And this is the hard part, a Tennessee loss at Houston. So they both have the same record, the Titans and the Chiefs, but the Titans beat the Chiefs 27-3 back in Week 7. That's the crazy thing, Gregg, that and I agree with you. I think the last couple of weeks with the offense just looking free and natural and free and easy, that's such a huge development in our league. So I don't worry about their attack anymore, but that's how bad it was. Back in Week 7, they were scoring a field goal for an entire game. That offense. That was crazy.
It is crazy to think back. It also, that what you broke down for the number 1 seed, it's why they're going to play this thing to win. I've heard there's some talk of because almost everyone else is, there's a lot of teams that might be resting players this week, but I do not see them resting players unless they're up by 4 scores.
And they're playing Saturday, obviously, and the Tennessee-Houston game is a early game on Sunday. So it's going to be all in front of them. They get to beat up on the Broncos and then sit on their couch and hope to get fortunate. All right, let's move to the other Saturday game. The Dallas Cowboys travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. And so
how pissed would Marc be if we just did the rest of the podcast?
Pissed.
I think he'd like it. I don't know. He's prepped. He's got his taglines. We need to circle back and get
we'll
the
circle back for his Saturday taglines for sure. Anyway, so we have the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Cowboys. Both teams going to the playoffs. So the Eagles clinch that playoff bid. with their 4th straight win. I angered Eagles Nation, Gregg, with a tweet on Monday when I was watching all the games as part of the power rankings process. When I went through their schedule and I was like, okay, when's the last time they beat a good team? And then I kept on going up and going up and going up. It's like, hot damn, they haven't beat a team that has a winning record right now. And then I said, I think these Eagles are the NFC Dolphins. And the Eagles fans weren't happy. They didn't want to hear that. And I get where they're coming from. It's funny actually how Twitter works. Like at first, all the people were more like Gonzo-like, which was, well, you're right. We're the best of the not very good. And it was very sensical. But then, of course, it probably showed up on like some type of blog or something at some point, or got tweeted out. And then all the maniacs came. And I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you, Philadelphia. I'm from New York. I'm not scared, Gregg. But I do feel that way. I think they're cannon fodder, most likely, in a couple weeks.
Well, one of the things I've always thought about you is that you're from New York and you're not scared. I think they're different than the Dolphins just a little bit, but it's close. I mean, I see what you're getting at, but I just, by the eye test and what they have personnel-wise and their strengths in terms of their offensive line, and for the most part getting pressure as a pass rush, I just think they have a little more to worry an opponent. It's probably going to be the Bucs. They are going to rest in this game, the Eagles, like no team has ever rested before. I mean, they got COVID. A ton of their starters got COVID this week. It was implied on our air that a lot of players took the COVID test on Monday to get the positive tests out of the way, which it's like COVID analytics.
That's where we're at.
Which is crazy because you only have to test if you self-report symptoms. So there's a ton of good starters, and I think they were going to sit everyone anyways. I've heard some talk that the Cowboys might sit players too. Tyron Smith has COVID. Micah Parsons is out with COVID. But I think the Cowboys want to get a good feeling about their offense, and I think they want to win this game because they could be the 2 seed. There's a big difference between the 2 and the 5 seed. First of all, you don't have to play, the Cardinals in the first round. That's nice. But if you can have a home game in the divisional round as opposed to going to Lambeau Field, to me, that seems absolutely worth playing 3/4 of this game with Dak Prescott.
Gregg, guess what? We have developing news. I'm Tom Brokaw. Marc Sessler is back. Back from his tech diffs in a big
We're
spot.
actually on the Sunday night game now, Marc. We're almost
Oh, what
done.
did 2 weeks in a row? I somehow dodged all responsibilities on the Thursday show. I don't know what happened. A router exploded in my home, and we restarted it. We'll see what happens.
Hey, quarantine life. You know what I'm saying?
What did you
I
say?
have no idea where you are, so I will use context clues.
Did you say happy wife, happy life?
No, I said quarantine life. You know what I'm saying? But I wish
The
I said
router
happy
exploded.
wife, happy life.
All right.
We did miss your tag though for Chiefs Broncos, so let's get that because we're in the middle of Eagles.
Okay,
Cowboys.
Ricky, get our tag little soundbite, please. The tagline is "Snow Day at Baxter College for Women."
Like that.
Nice.
I like you're being a leader right now too, Marc. People talk about what is leadership? Is it making a big speech before the game or no? It's leading by example. He's showing us right now, week 18. He's not phoning in. He's coming up with new material. Nope. He's gaining energy as we get to the finish.
I mean, I've missed 75% of the show, so I don't know what phone in would qualify as.
I would just say what Gregg is saying is spot on. True leaders, it's actions, it's not words necessarily, and I think you've caused us all to lift our game. And just so I'm aware of how this works, there's no explanation. It's just this is the tagline, and we keep moving. Or are we supposed to ask what the hell that just meant?
No, you're allowed to, but it is not my intention to bog the show down or add an extra 18 minutes. As I suggested up the top, it would be, these are quick taglines. We can just ignore and move on. They're functional for further use.
We're going to let that one sit and marinate for the listening public. All right, so back to the Eagles and Cowboys. Marc, you missed that Eagles fans are mad at me on Twitter, but I ain't afraid because, I'm up there in the Bronx slinging pizza dough, listening to Frankie Valli, playing stickball on my day off. Oh, over here now.
Well, I'm very glad for you. So you've annoyed them, but you don't think about them.
But the Cowboys, Gregg, that was a good point. I believe they need a nice win here to go into the playoffs. They don't need it, but they could use it. And I mean, the offense needs to show up if they're healthy, if they're on the field, and score 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, and go to the postseason feeling like you have a weapon that people can't stop on that side of the ball. That feels like important, doesn't it, Marc?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent, like going back and watching teams that go into the playoffs in the right way and what it means. And you're going to obviously be dealing with an Eagles team that could be sitting all sorts of players. They've got a ton of people, as Gregg mentioned, on the COVID list. Dallas does too. But you'd like to say maybe we take this narrative of the slumping Dallas offense and put it away for a bit, because 3 of the last 4 weeks for Dallas on offense have been a problem. That Washington game was a total fireworks show. You'd like to see that happen again as a tune-up, because it does matter where you wind up seeding-wise. Like, they can improve their situation there. So this game has a big impact for the Cowboys.
They are most likely locked. They're not locked in, but they're most likely Dallas, the number 4 seed in the NFC. The Eagles can move up to as high as the 6th or the 7th. We'll see what happens. All right. Any other thoughts there before we move into Sunday, Gregg? All right, let's move into Sunday. Let's move into the draft. And Marc, good thing you're back. Oh, where's your tagline for that game? I'm sorry.
Oh, the tagline. Quick, Erica, the sound. Boss, it's Paula Poundstone on line 2.
Like that.
Is that the disgraced comedian with the giant pants?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
that would be her.
All right, let's move to Sunday. I'm enjoying them so far, 2 for 2. Draft style. Marc, you have the first pick in the final proper draft of the year.
Well, I'm gonna go Patriots at Dolphins. I'm intrigued by this game. I want to see New England come in. Now, New England can still theoretically grab the number 1 seed if some other stuff happens. They can still win the AFC East if Buffalo ever were to tumble against the Jets. So there are multiple factors here for New England to go in and play the best game they can. And I don't trust Miami's offensive line in this game against New England's defense. I thought the meltdown against Tennessee kind of, to your argument for weeks, Dan, unmasked the Dolphins as a non-playoff contender. Their defense is spicy, but they got run over by Tennessee a week ago. And I know that game took place in ugly conditions, which affected Tua's play. This will be in Miami, obviously. And I mean, I don't know how much to give faith to these things, but Bill Belichick's record against the Dolphins since 2000 has been a problem compared to how he's dealt with the Jets and the Bills. These games in Miami, in the road, in South Beach, have been an issue. They knocked them out of the playoffs a year ago. They knocked them out of the bye 2 years ago. And these were not, necessarily starry Dolphins teams. They're not that different than this year. So I guess you just want to hope that the New England has learned whatever lesson from that and doesn't have some sort of a hangover. I don't expect them to. I think they'll run the ball really well. It's probably not a huge Mac Jones game for me. I think if anything, you don't want to put it into his hands. You just want to do what you do, keep it clean, keep it vanilla, and try to punish a defense that's going to know you pretty well. Brian Flores is one of the few kind of expats coaches that seems to understand how Belichick's mind works and affect it on game day.
Right. I'm not concerned with the record of Miami over his career, but the fact that Brian Flores has a winning record is absolutely instructive, because this Dolphins team is similar in its strengths and weaknesses as they were in the past couple of years, including week 1 where they beat them. Took a fumble late in Dolphins territory, but who knows? That was a nip and tuck game where 2 teams looked very even. It was a long time ago. I think the Patriots can show that they're a better team. They're more complete. I mean, they can run, they can pass. They're pretty solid against the run. They have playmakers in terms of J.C. Jackson and Barmore, who's just playing out of his mind right now. They gave Adrian Phillips, who's been a great pickup at safety, a contract this week, which I thought was smart. They get Aguilar back. They really had missed Kendrick Bourne when he was out of the lineup. He's back. So they're a better team overall, but I kind of expect this will be close for a while, just because Miami generally is that team. If the Patriots are really taking off, though, maybe they do wax them. It would really change, I think, the Tua conversation in the offseason. As silly as it is, I think how Tua plays in this game will matter. If he plays awesome and they win, I think that'll help point out a lot of the positives that he had this year, because the last 3 weeks have been really ugly for him.
So I don't think it's silly. Well, it's silly if you're saying it all comes down to one game, but I think what's happened now that we've had a full season of Tua and we've seen, the slow start by the team and Tua, and then they got hot, and he had some good games in that stretch, but he's never really felt like a transcendent first-round talent that they wanted him to be. And then with the season essentially on the line, when they finally face a big-time team in Tennessee, he does nothing. The team does nothing. So part of me is like, man, I wonder if it already was sealed, that Tennessee game. Like, they're like, we want to, when Deshaun Watson is traded to the Dolphins in a month or 2 months or whatever it is, a couple of months from now, I really think that Tennessee game, maybe it will seem unfair, but I think that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Tua's long-term viability in Miami. But maybe he lights up the Patriots, and that helps him. But I don't know if that's going to happen, because I don't think we've seen enough from Tua and the Dolphins offense to think that they could hang with a defense like this. The Patriots defense, first in points per game allowed, third in total yards allowed, fourth in opposition third down percentage, second in an opposition passer rating. They're holding quarterbacks this season to a passer rating of 72.4, and they're third in takeaways. All that seems to set up to me in a game where the Patriots are playing for the division, hopefully for them. I think this is going to get away from Miami, and this feels like 31-10 to me.
That would be a great sign for this Patriots team going into the playoffs, because I know it was the Jaguars a week ago, but that doesn't, I don't think, matters to the players there. They had 2 games where they were not playing well, and they came out of last week's game feeling like they're absolutely back, and they're back and refocused. And I think to the 2018 team, which is, I think the worst Patriots team maybe that won the Super Bowl, that team lost 2 games in a row in December, and then they beat up on some patsies the last 2 weeks of the season and came into the playoffs playing well. I don't think this team is headed to a Super Bowl necessarily, but I think they have a shot. Like, I think basically almost every team in the AFC that makes the playoffs, I think, has a shot. But I don't view the Patriots having that much worse of a shot today than I did in Week 11. I've at least as a fan, I've been kind of consistent where I think they got a shot, but they're gonna need some breaks. They're gonna need some great game plans.
The only thing is they don't trip up against lesser opponents. I mean, the Jacksonville game is instructive that they went and just absolutely took them apart. I know that's a bad team, but I would be shocked if Miami pulled another trick scenario here. You're not going to have Ryan Fitzpatrick, having someone jump on his back and carry him off the field like it was a year ago.
Do I have to say instructive now in the next 5 minutes? The rule of threes?
Oh, did Gregg also say that?
Yes, he did.
We've just become one being. Do you want the tagline for this game?
We'll always want the taglines.
Ricky, hit it. Tagline, tell me I'm bad.
It's a nice
Sounds
window.
like another router just exploded.
Right. It's a nice window into Marc's subconscious. I've been enjoying it.
I think
he likes to be told he's bad. Ideally by a female trained assassin.
Must be trained, though. If the assassin is untrained, do not tell him he's bad. If she's been highly trained, yes. Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. All right, let's take a break, and then we move to Gregg. All right, we're back. Greggy, you're on the board. Psych, gotcha, baby, because I'm jumping you. I'm jumping you, baby.
It's a Dan Hanzus shout out.
I mean, this is a classic. A classic move by a guy who forgot to use it in a better spot. Waits until week 18, It's like the second pick. It's like you just checked in your free ice cream cone coupon was running out today. You're not even hungry, but you just got to use it now. Anyways.
Well, it's playing out just as you'd expect here. I'm enjoying it.
I waited all season. And it's now being remembered by football historians and podcast historians as like the Herschel Walker trade. Whatever it was that Gregg gave to me, I gave to Gregg. It all was building towards this. I've jumped him 3 times.
I remember what it was. It was a Ravens-Bengals game that the Ravens got waxed.
And now here we are. Somehow, Marc doesn't take the best game off the board. He stuck around in the AFC East. He loves Belichick. Worked out for me. So obviously, I'm going to grab the game of the week, one of the games of the year, the 49ers at the LA Rams. NFC West on the line. Huge stakes.
That is
One of
what I
these
would have taken, by the way.
Absolutely,
I want
it
in
was what you were gonna
transparency. I want to show that in future, cases when I deny that you got me, like this is.
I know
I'm
it, Gregg.
truthful here. Yeah, of course.
But
I was thinking
what's
that.
with your whole trying to sell it like, oh, you got your little ice cream ticket? No, bro, this was well orchestrated and carried out.
Do you think that maybe I'm nice enough where I left that for one of my two fellow podcasters?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh.
But I am looking forward to your tagline. All right, here we go. Interesting game. Fascinating game. Greggy, where are we at on Jimmy Garoppolo? I know he was practicing this week, and Kyle Shanahan wants Garoppolo to play. It's been laid out there for weeks and weeks that he trusts Jimmy G on some level more than the kid. What are we hearing?
That he practiced, he was limited, that he's still feeling pain, but there was some video of him throwing the ball, and to my untrained eye, looked pretty good.
Well,
Looked pretty normal.
Maybe we're watching the same video where George Kittle was taking passes from each of the three quarterbacks.
It's just one throw, but it's like, I don't know. He's out there throwing, so he
makes
probably
the catch, and then Kittle, who's a WWE character, is like, oh, yeah, that was a good ball. He's like, oh, that's funny. So let's say Jimmy G starts. I think that's where this is heading, but don't discount Trey Lance having a big role, whether it's coming in or some type of tandem thing here. The Rams, it's all in front of the Rams here. They win their first NFC West title since 2018 with a win here. And what I'm looking to see here, San Francisco has got a top 5 ranked defense this year. Which version of Matthew Stafford shows up in this game? Because the turnover-laden player, that's a problem in the playoffs. They're going to the dance either way. The Niners, where are we at on the Niners? They're at 9-7. They will clinch a playoff berth with a win or a New Orleans loss at Atlanta in Week 18. So those are the stakes in this game. They're very high. Which version of Matt Stafford shows up, Marc?
Well, I think that the Matthew Stafford experience includes both. I mean, the pick six stuff happened. It started in that romp, the San Francisco romp, where basically it put the Rams into a 14-0 hole that they never escaped from, and that was because of the Stafford mistakes. And also San Francisco's ability, Shanahan's ability against Sean McVay to orchestrate long clock-chewing drives that really kept the Rams in that game specifically in the dirt. And it was the game that kind of left people wondering, are the Rams finesse? Now, I do think that Stafford last week, after the initial mistakes, I mean, he went, 14 for 14. He was pretty pristine down the stretch. So I think that's the other part of Stafford. I'm with you 100% because if it's Jimmy G, it's also a quarterback whose mistakes could unspool this team. And we've seen that a couple different times. So I'm wondering if we get a little bit of Jimmy G and maybe a little bit more of Trey Lance, because I know that game started a little rough for them against Houston a week ago, but I thought that Trey Lance started to really feel more comfortable as the game went on, see the field a little better. And that touchdown to Deebo Samuel, it's like, do you want that X factor in a game like this when the Rams have very little tape on this guy? I think it's just a TBD. And I mean, Shanahan said this is going to be a game time decision at quarterback for competitive balance reasons. So I wonder if we finally get that mix that we've been looking for.
Yeah, I would be afraid of Trey Lance a little bit if I was the Rams, because that's how the 49ers have beat him over the years for the most part, is their running game. And Trey Lance, Elijah Mitchell, and Deebo Samuel together on the same field, that's a lot to deal with. When Trey Lance was starting earlier in the year, players were injured. Ayuk wasn't up to speed. Mitchell wasn't Mitchell. Kittle wasn't himself. And I think it's tough, and I think we will see more of Trey Lance even if Jimmy G does start. Now, Jimmy G's undefeated against the Rams. He's 5-0. McVay hasn't won a game against this 49ers team. One of the reasons I think is they haven't been able to hold up defensively, and that's where I've seen the biggest change with this Rams team. I know Von Miller hasn't lit the sky on fire, but he's great at setting the edge. He's been a plus starter. And you've seen Leonard Floyd, A'Shaun Robinson, Gaines, and then especially Aaron Donald going from good Aaron Donald season, which is, Pro Bowler, All Pro, to otherworldly Aaron Donald again, which is, where he is in the inner circle Hall of Fame. And that's the kind of run he's on now. And so I think that's a problem for the 49ers and a difference between when these two teams last.
I think money pushed back on power rankings this week. I have the Rams at number 2 overall. And I actually put a lot into how that game ended. I thought it was very interesting. that they had this game where they struggled, where the quarterback was making bad throws. And then for them to be able to close the way they did, it was a championship close, the 75-yard drive. And Mark, you kind of hit on this, like the precision that Stafford threw the ball with, and that every ball was exactly where it needed to be, ending with the Beckham touchdown. And then Von Miller, as Gregg mentions, he's had a positive impact on this team. He's not Von Miller of 2015, but he doesn't necessarily need to be. He makes the biggest play of his Rams career, that crushing sack of Tyler Huntley, keeps Justin Tucker off the field. So while that was an imperfect game, that close is what really good teams do, even on days that aren't so hot.
And isn't it fair to think that it was going to take time for Stafford to kind of find his way in this offense a little bit? I mean, I just think when you see the Rams in that late period of that game, the Rams at their heights are a Super Bowl team. Now, if you get bungled up with a bunch of mistakes, and we've seen it happen a couple other times where the Stafford issues, which shouldn't come as a surprise to longtime Stafford viewers, they could not overcome those. And so, I mean, the Niners, I think, are a bad opponent if you get mistakes, plus the Niners executing on offense. That's the Rams team. That's the team the Rams have not been able to figure out and solve, which would be the scary, end of the bargain here. But I think you're right that it's game of the week material if it plays out as expected. I mean, I sometimes look at these games and think, actually, this game could be 38-10 in the third quarter too.
Who's winning though? Who's winning that game then?
Let's pick it.
I'm going to go with my heart and go San Francisco 28-23.
That heart has betrayed you this year, Mark.
Oh, 1,000 times.
I took the Rams on my game picks on the site, 26-24, which is a thread the needle. It's like under the point spread, which started at 5, and I think it's down to 4.5 or 4 now. But this is such a coin flip. They could play again next week too. Like if there is a scenario, if the Saints lost, especially in the Rams won, that they could play again next week, which would be highly annoying. And I think knocking out the 49ers would be an emphatic way to end this little streak here. And I do think the 2 seed really does matter. Dan, the Cowboys would pass the Rams if the Cowboys won and the Rams lost. And who knows if the Bucs could pass them too. Potential. I think the Rams have the tiebreaker there. It depends on if it's 3-way.
They do because they beat them, but yeah.
Right. But if it's a 3-way, it comes down to conference record, and the Cowboys get it. So it's a lot at stake for both teams.
I got 31-24 Rams, but I think this is going to be a really good game. And if the Rams do get in with a win and all that, and the momentum that goes with that, look out. They really,
and Cam Akers could be back. We should mention Cam Akers, who I think as good as Sony Michel has been, he is not a pass catching back. Akers is a little more complete. So I think the combination of those two guys would be great for them.
Bummer.
I'll give you a little Greggism.
Yeah.
The Niners, the number 2 run defense DVOA wise right now. So that's a small factor.
Bummer though about that, Gregg, because you actually stepped on Marc's tagline there. His tagline for this game is Cam Akers could be back.
No, it's not. You want to know what it is?
No. Well, yes, I do.
Ricky. Hungry for chocolate.
Okay.
All right. There's definitely an uncomfortable sensuality that's really creeping into the.
That is a dietary item. I mean, most
adults
and children enjoy chocolate.
Chocolate's got some sensuality pop.
Well, you're adding your own. You're adding your own.
Not my thing. I don't do that.
I'm just saying you're adding your own layers to it.
That's not where it is.
I didn't come in with that layer necessarily.
Gregg's wife's a chef. Leave it there.
What does that have to do with it?
I don't know. You tell me. Now you're up, Gregg. Third pick.
Yeah, you really have boxed me in a corner here, because the best games are in the afternoon, and yet it doesn't matter. I gotta admit, the game I want to watch is Colts Jags, and I know it could be a blowout, but I don't care. It's the game that matters the most in the early window, and it's also the game where if it is close in the third quarter, it's easily the most important game of the week. Because if that happens, then suddenly the Ravens and Steelers are alive. It changes the stakes for the Chargers. It also would be like an epic disappointment for the Colts to even be close, and the tension could be high. So even though I kind of think it'll be a blowout, I'm going to take Colts Jags. And remember that the first time these teams played, it was very close. I made a mistake on the podcast previously. I was thinking about a Colts Texans game. The Colts Jaguars game back in, I think it was week 10, was maybe the most complete game the Jaguars played all year. They lost it by 6 points. There was a punt return touchdown by the Colts. It was one of the better games by the Jaguars offense. The Colts offense did nothing after scoring a touchdown early and then getting this punt block touchdown to go up big. I don't know if that's necessarily telling, but I think it's more telling than the fact that, they haven't won in Jacksonville in 6 years. I don't care about those old Jaguars team, but this one did play its best game of the year against the Colts. And, could Carson Wentz be squeezing the ball a little tight coming out of halftime if this game is actually close? I'm curious to see, at least.
I mean, the Carson Wentz thing came back, had COVID. We're now familiar in this podcast realm with the effects of COVID, and it is crazy. This was reported, Stephen Holder from The Athletic. One of the things that NFL training staffs are learning this year is that the after effects of COVID are felt most when the body is pushed to its limits. I think we underestimate its impact on the entire NFL this season, to be perfectly honest. I thought that was a good tweet. I thought it was interesting. It made me think of Tyreek Hill when he came back from COVID a couple weeks back and had no role or made no impression in that game for the Chiefs on a day where they, lit up their opponent offensively. And it just makes me think, man, I know I'm like maybe too much of a defender of Wentz, but at the same time, he's one of those guys where people don't like Wentz. There's a celebration when Wentz struggles. I think it's a little bit of confirmation bias for all of Twitter when he struggles. And I think maybe not enough was put into him coming back as quickly as he did from having COVID, not being vaxxed. And I'm just wondering, is that a throw-out game, or is that more reason to be concerned that he's an up-and-down guy? Because before he got sick in Arizona, he led them on a couple drives that were absolutely money and had me feeling super sky-high about the Colts. I'm willing to maybe throw out.
But the week before that was one of his worst games of the year.
I know.
It was kind of a mess. So that he's been consistent this year, I think, overall. He has not been that roller coaster, but the last 3 weeks he's been that roller coaster.
I mean, that was against the Pats, though. I will say that. I mean, that's one of the best defenses in football. But
if you knew, because we spent all off season projecting Carson Wentz as a potential success because of the environment, Frank Reich, all that stuff. If you looked at his overall season, we would call it a success. I just think that his low moments kind of have the ability, we just talked about Matthew Stafford. If you get too many low moments of Wentz in a game, that's the end of the Colts when they get into the playoffs. In this game, I think the X factor, I don't even know if it deserves a letter, but the Jacksonville offense has just been getting worse and worse and worse. And the season cannot end soon enough for Trevor Lawrence. They are defunct. They are inoperable. I don't see a game playing out the way it did last time. When I called Jacksonville the Berserker team after that close Colts game, because it really made you think, were they coming together finally? But they were not. And if I'm Indy, I just basically you ride Jonathan Taylor early, you get an early lead in this game, and you never look back. It's inexcusable to lose this, and I don't think they will.
Right. They Darius Leonard said we're practicing much better this week. Last week was lackadaisical. Darius Leonard, who Wes always loved him some Darius Leonard. He's been a part of 12 turnovers this year, Darius Leonard, on his own.
The punch.
From an off-ball linebacker position.
It's also because of that punch.
COVID.
He could be in the mix of defensive player of the year mix too. I mean, he's not quite there for me with Donald and Parsons and Watt, but he's not far off.
He did it again last week. It didn't result in a turnover, but it almost was huge. Just punching that ball out. He has that skill like Peanut Tillman that it's such a weapon, and you wonder why more guys don't do it. It's probably hard to do. Trevor Lawrence, to your point, Mark, he had that garbage time screen pass touchdown at the end of the Patriots game, and that ended a streak of 184 pass attempts without a touchdown. I don't think any team has a more important offseason in front of it than the Jaguars. And the playoff scenario, the Colts clinch a playoff berth with a win over the Jags, so that's the easy way in, or they lose, which would be, as we're saying, it would cause chaos in the AFC. If they lose, they only make the playoffs if Pittsburgh loses at Baltimore and New England loses at Miami, plus Chargers lose at Vegas. So basically, the Colts are cooked if they don't win this game, but they should. You got a tagline, Mark?
Yes, Ricky. Aircraft to Chernobyl. Aircraft to Chernobyl.
I get that one. By the way, Ricky privately messaged me saying it's starting to annoy her that you keep calling for the drop. She's a professional. She'll hit it once I tee you up.
Well,
We
let's
don't
see
need
how
that
that
double.
goes. I'm listen. Like this is a new project. I'm open to in progress critique, and I will attempt that next time and
Wait,
see how that
she
goes.
told Dan that she was annoyed?
Why
Ricky,
not just tell me?
I don't know
not
if
to do
I
it?
betrayed your confidence there, but I just want to make sure we're running a very smooth
That wasn't.
ship.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly what I said. But I was like, you don't have to say Ricky every time, Mark. Like, I get timing of a drop.
Right.
Because gorgeous, gorgeous girls do their job the right way.
All right. Well, I stand
is.
heavily corrected.
There
It
it
was
is.
not necessarily a take on your ability to do what you do, but there's
Now
no
I'm
way.
gonna
You know,
be
I
all
can't win
like
this one.
Hey,
messed
Ricky,
up.
I get your teen reference.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Gorgeous, gorgeous girls stay up with pop
It's
culture.
like Erica tried to convince Dan to do it before the show, but
It's funny because you're an old dad. All right. Let's see. It's back to the old Zeuser. In a big spot. I will take Jets at Buffalo. Same kind of vibe here, obviously, with Indy Jacksonville. Is it a great game? No. Could it be a bloodbath by the end of the first quarter? Yes. But what if it's not? What if it's not? The Jets coming off, yes, they got their hearts ripped out there at the end of the game by Tom Brady. It's happened many times in franchise history. It's just he's wearing a different uniform now. It doesn't hurt the same when it's when he's not wearing a Patriot uniform, I got to say. But still not pleasant. Did help them in terms of keeping them in the top 5 of the draft, so I try to keep that in perspective. And most importantly, Zach Wilson. And Gregg, we talked about it last Thursday, that did not set up well for Wilson to play well with Todd Bowles coming in and the Bucs having all their playmakers on defense. Well, the boy fared very well in that game. And in fact, when it ended the way it did on that controversial 4th and 2 call, where there was a bit of a miscommunication and it led to a QB sneak that failed, that set up the loss, that bummed me out because I really thought, let Zach win this game in the 4th quarter, but they really kind of reined him in. So we didn't get to see that really dramatic ending, but I thought that was his first clean, good game, positive.
But one reason, he didn't throw as much, it was in short yardage, because their running game was so good, and they had reason to believe in it. And they've had a pretty good running game in general this season, especially the last month. And Wilson's confident. That was not just his best game, I thought. I thought it was by far, because he was just so confident, comfortable. Maybe it was the running plays a week before, just like gave him this feeling. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a badass, I belong here. And he just started, throwing the ball much better. I really love that for him, and I want to see him have another good game. This is another really tough test, but if he can look good this week, man, you just have this is what late season football can be about for losing teams. To go into the offseason with 2 games like that or 3 games like that would be really awesome.
I also think like he lacked some confidence after he was injured. I mean, like they verbally acknowledged that he looks like a different player last week. And if you look at this game, it's like the Bills romp on bad teams. Talking about a run game, I think Buffalo has been able to run the ball better. Their offensive line against New England and last week against Atlanta has come together. I think it's a positive sign for the playoffs. I mean, they ran for 200 plus a week ago. So I like that element of Buffalo's offense becoming a little more balanced, but they kind of remind me of teams we're saying like Dallas, like some of these others going with some momentum. Like I think that they're determined to drop a mega hammer on New York and get out of this thing, winning the division and kind of getting back to where people viewed them a couple months ago before some ups and downs.
That would be my pick too, and the Desert thinks that as well. I think the Jets are close to 15-point underdogs for the second straight week. But at the same time, I was deeply unimpressed by the Bills against the Falcons, another team you thought they were going to trounce in their building. And Josh Allen threw interceptions on 3 consecutive drives. Stephon Diggs dropped a touchdown pass. If the Falcons could just execute a little bit better in a couple spots, it's a totally different game. I mean, so the 29-15, I think it was, final score was misleading. We'll see. And just to put a bow on the Wilson talk from my end, not only has he hasn't thrown an interception in 4 games, which is interesting. He also has not, he's starting to hit the layups, as Saleh calls them. And he had a couple throws where it was like, oh, damn, there it is. That's the throw. Those are the throws that we saw and heard about where he threads the needle and throws an absolute laser. So, again, as I said, Gregg, Marc, you weren't here for it, but I said that I'm scarred, obviously, as a Jets fan. I maybe jumped the gun on writing the boy off. I'm just trying to take a more of a macro viewpoint and sit back and let it develop more, because I know how much around him, the structure is not great around him, but seeing these signs really makes you hopeful, and we'll see what happens against the Bills. Does anybody else agree that the Buffalo performance against the Falcons was a little dicey, and you wonder if that team could show up in a couple weeks?
Yes, I felt that way about Buffalo for months. That said, I'm going to personally choose not to overreact to the 3 picks and 4 passes, because, there's a tick down with Josh Allen on some levels from his year ago. But I kind of feel like this is sort of who you're going to get at moments with Josh Allen, and he still is essentially the son they revolve around.
But
that one particular game, I'm not that worried about.
Yeah, he's like Pete Cam or better, because he's a little better as a thrower, in that like his baseline is still high, because they won that game partly because of his running ability. That once they threw those interceptions, they stopped throwing the ball, and he had 82 yards rushing. He's such a good red zone runner. He's such a good runner in general. And Mark, I think your point about them getting their run game together is big, because on days like that, maybe when Allen's not feeling it, maybe you can still win a playoff game because of his legs, because of their running.
Yeah,
tough though. You can only survive like one of those games.
I was going to say, I don't know if I buy into their running game based on the Atlanta game.
I buy into
it was
Allen
good
though.
to see.
Like if he's taken off 10 times, he's a
different.
frightening guy. He's frightening.
And it happened against New England to some degree the week before too. So it just arrow up after it was a big issue.
All right, Greg, you're up.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Make sure mommy signs your report card.
Told you. There's a theme here. There's a theme.
What? That's something that happens when you're a responsible child. You make sure that
but you made it sound.
Yeah.
You put a
if
little
you like sensuality. If you rewind that
into
back and listen to what you said.
No, I'm not. I don't have a lot of experience at reading taglines, so I'm probably learning how to be. I'm not trying to put my own emphasis on it.
I think you're just naturally a sensual guy, and it's coming out in these taglines.
I haven't done it yet, but I will. I'm going to ask what that means.
Well, it just was something that I was thinking about, that when you were a child, I remember getting one grade that was quite hideous in, not shocker for us.
Right, no, I understand
class.
that. I understand that. I mean,
Right.
I understand the idea of having to take a report card home to your mother that maybe is the dicey grade or whatever, but like, how does that connect to the game in Orchard Park this weekend?
Well, that's not up for me to decide. I did not claim that they all have like sort of deep gridiron links to the actual contest.
I was just looking for any link. That's all.
Zach Wilson's report card matters. He has a chance to improve some of his grades.
There you go. I like it. All right. I promise not to ask anymore. You don't have to explain it, but that one I was just more curious about. Greg, you're up.
I'm going to take the Seahawks Cardinals, which is an important game for the Cardinals, still trying to win the NFC West. I don't think there's like a lot separating these two teams right now. I like the way that Arizona stood up last week, but it also just took a lot of extraordinary plays, and I don't know if that's a repeatable thing. The way that Seattle's been moving defenses in terms of their offensive line for Rashad Penny has been pretty impressive. They've been an unlucky team this year. Obviously, Russell Wilson hasn't been at his best, but he's coming off his best game of the year too. And I'm just curious about this Cardinals team going into the playoffs. They should get Connor back, it sounds like, this week. He's been limited in practice, but now Chase Edmonds looks like he's out again. So they haven't been able to stay healthy, and I wouldn't be totally shocked if the Rams were able to back into winning this division because the Cardinals lose this game.
Well, I guess you were waiting to see it with Rondale Moore, who was, he's practiced on a limited basis. They've been without some of these guys, and I still see a Cardinals offense that they can dazzle you, but they are working through some of their own issues at a weird time in the year to be doing that. It was a nice performance last week for the most part, but they still at times leave you a little beguiled, and they feel like a team that could get picked off in this playoff race. They're just I feel like they peaked.
When's the last time? By the way, just you brought him up. Like, when's the last time Rondale Moore made a play?
Well, he's been out of the mix, but you're right. That he seemed to be like the juicy X factor that made their offense overwhelming at times. But you take him out of the mix, there's no DeAndre Hopkins. It seems like they've got injured running backs every week. And, they were missing Rodney Hudson at center. I thought that created a ton of chaos. He's back at least, but they're not the healthiest team, and they don't seem to be the most in sync.
That was obviously vitally important for their confidence, but I'm with you, Greg. I think Seattle, and I'd like them to lose because I want that draft pick to stay in the top 10. But it feels like playing with nothing to lose. They're going to be loose. They just had that game where they got the offense going in a big way, dropping the 50 burger. We'll see. I've been kind of doubting the Cardinals all year after that 7-0 start, and it's been correct for the most part, and I guess I'm doubting them again. So if I was in the Gregg Rosenthal, I have to pick the game mode. I am picking Seattle here to win.
And they are like 6-point underdogs, so you could really clean up if you take that the money line, just as a straight upset.
No, that's you. I don't put a raincoat on. That's you. That's your world. And I stay away from your realm, and I respect it.
I mean, it's not like totally, if you like them to win, you like them to win.
But I love that. I love them. Yeah, covering that for sure. That is like
disappointing for Arizona if that becomes a reality. Very.
All right. You have anything else to add?
Yeah.
Just a tagline.
Did you have any? Oh yeah, just the tagline, of course. Actually, before the tagline. Oh well, no. Once the drop happens, that's it.
Well, no, we can.
We're into the tagline.
All right. Tagline: 2 + 2 = Hey there, sailor.
Okay. Now, see, there is a theme here. They're gonna have to put some type of mature rating on this podcast for this episode.
It's eye of the beholder. I mean, Tipper Gore may not like it, but someone else might.
I can't wait for the Senate hearing where Dee Snider of Twisted Sister is he's testifying on our behalf.
There's 90% of our listeners are not into the Tipper Gore reference.
Well, you're correct.
All right, let's take a break and we will continue the draft. All right, we are back. It is Marc Sessler on the board.
All right, I'm going to go Titans at Texans. It kind of feels to me like the brother or sister game to Colts Jaguars. Where
can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
This week's kind of annoying because it's like all these teams with a lot on the line playing these stiff teams. Where if just things, I mostly blame the Browns and the Ravens, honestly. Like if we just had a couple other teams step up in the last couple of weeks, this would have been a wild, considering the way this year went for 95% of the season, we should have had a week 18 that was the craziest week 18 ever. Instead, we're like, well, maybe the Houston Texans will pull it together and pull off a major upset. It's like, no, probably not. There's not a lot of juice here. There should have been more juice. All right, go ahead.
There's two great games. You're right. There's two really important games, and the rest of them, you're right. You're absolutely
quick fix league. I mean, I think we could have even known at 8 months ago. Let's have the Texans play the Jaguars, and let's have the Colts play the Titans in Week 18. But
Pretty
instead,
girls would have liked that better.
Right. I mean, I like the division game aspect, but we knew the South. We knew what the South was. So this is relatively annoying. I would say this is different though than playing the Jaguars because this Texans team, I think we kind of thought we knew what they were for a long period of time, but in that David Culley was maybe a dead man walking. I mean, they're weeks removed from putting it on the Chargers, and they played the Niners tough. They hang around and they're not incompetent and they're playing real hard. So the Titans, you've got AJ Brown back. You're going to get Derrick Henry back at very soon here. We're beginning to look at the Titans team that we once knew. And I would just remind people, because I know there's all this hubbub about should they get the number 1 seed or not. And that if they falter here, someone else steps in and probably grabs that. But this is a team that in 4 consecutive weeks, when they had everyone, beat the Bills, the Chiefs, the Colts, and the Rams. I mean, that's a playoff run. That's a Super Bowl run right there. So I take them seriously. I think that we've seen them heat up. I mean, they were so physical against Miami last week on defense, the way they ran the ball on Miami, which is a good run defense right there, that I don't think that this is a make-pretend necessarily number 1 seed. Their early wins put them in this position. They've done just enough since, and now they're rounding into shape.
There's an idea, not to keep going back to the Titans fans being upset, but there's an idea that people don't think they're a deserving number 1 seed. I don't think that. I think a lot of people that are following the league, they don't think that. It's kind of worked out in a positive way for them. But once we do get to January football and the playoffs, I think they could beat any of these teams in the AFC, especially this year. But the difference is, when I look at the number 1 seed in the NFC, the Packers is that's a powerhouse, and teams having to come into their building to beat them in one of 2 games. that's going to be very tough. I don't feel that way about the Titans, but it doesn't mean I don't think they're a real team or I think they're a paper champion. None of that. There are levels. There are like, it doesn't have to be black or white. It could be somewhere in the middle, and that's where I am on the Titans.
Maybe they're just have scar tissue, these Titans fans, not just from being overlooked by the national media, but from 2008, one of the weirdest number one seeds of all time, Kerry Collins, Tennessee Titans, 13-3. And that was the storyline that year was like, is this Titans team really any good? And then they went out meekly in their first playoff game to the Ravens. So maybe it's Titans fans remembering all the way back then. I don't think they have to worry too much about this week, but they did lose to the Texans, fairly convincingly the first time around. Now they were about at their low in terms of player availability. Then AJ Brown was in and out of that game. But that was the week Vrabel wasn't even practicing because they couldn't fill an entire roster of healthy players. It wasn't COVID. It was like injuries, and it was a turnover fest. Tannehill ended up throwing a bunch of picks right at the end of that game. The Texans defense has been pretty tough to the point where you could imagine it being somewhat close for a while. But I'm with you, Mark. Like, they're so physical on both lines. They should just push the Texans around and make this thing. This is a playoff game for make this thing very boring, because you win this game, you advance around in the playoffs. That's what Vrabel's saying.
Too much is at stake. These teams, to your point, Tamara, you got a team with something that has to go and accomplish something versus a team that's sort of, got a bunch of people thinking about the fact they'll be in Aruba, 24 hours later after the final whistle blows. You cannot falter here. You just got to take care of business.
The rest of the football world has completely forgotten about the Brett Favre was on the Jets season. But Jets fans, there are moments of that season that were so much fun. And one of them is when the Jets went to Tennessee and beat up the 10-0 Titans, handing them their first loss of the year. I remember that game like it was yesterday, watching that at Birds in West Hollywood or in Hollywood. That was a nice memory. The other one was the Thursday night game against the Pats, Gregg, which I know you remember, the Matt Castle Pats. Then it all went
I was
to hell.
there. I was there.
You were there.
That was the last game I went to as a fan until this Rams game with the family. It was that Matt Castle Jets game.
Randy Moss had the big touchdown
cold
catch at the end of regulation to send it to overtime, and then I think Nick Folk hit the field goal for the Jets to win the game.
Now
But
here he is, all these years later, Patriots legend.
Isn't
Nick
that crazy? He is a great kicker, Nick Folk. All right. Any other thoughts about this game, gentlemen?
No, other than Donta Foreman, I think will be a factor in the playoffs, even if Derrick Henry's back. Henry's practicing a little bit this week. Foreman's been great. This was a high draft pick that was coming on late in his rookie year, tore his Achilles a couple years ago. He's a pretty talented guy. I don't think he has been a fluke. And so I think with him, when Henry is back, you don't have to give Henry the ball 30 times necessarily. Maybe Foreman is mixed in. He's been really, I don't think it's just been the O-line. He personally has been really good.
I don't know how many running backs have come back from an Achilles scenario where they look as powerful and fast as he's looked.
And it took him a few years. I think that's what explains why was this guy on the street. It's because he didn't look very good coming off the Achilles, but now he's a few years removed from it. I think it's 2.5 years removed from it.
The Tennessee offensive line is healthy and all together for the first time now. So it all seems to be kind of coming together for them. And that's one thing I don't think most people realized, even when they were kind of scuffling before these last two wins. The run game has pretty much been there all season, with or without Henry. So it can only get better with the big dog. And you never, ever fade the big dog.
Tagline.
Mark. Oh, Mark, give us a tagline.
Breezy shopping spree in eastern Iran.
Breezy shopping spree in eastern Iran. Are you correlating Houston, Texas to Iran?
No.
Feels like a blowout.
It's not the first thing I'm
the
doing.
Texans. So people of Texas and the Houston area, that's what he was saying. I'm going to decode that for you.
Well, I would typically want to counter that, but we can move on.
Do you think I had that right, Gregg?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I like Houston. We went there for a Super Bowl, had some amazing seafood.
I've been a
like
couple
it too,
Super
just
Bowls
to
in
be
Houston.
clear.
I like it. It's a nice Super Bowl town. Nice Super Bowl town.
All right. Mark, snakes to you. Lance
All right.
Zierlein took us out. Lance knows Houston.
Yes, he did.
Lance
We went to
Zierlein
that
knows
UFO bar with Wes and the crew too. I had a wonderful time there. I do not consider it the equivalent of Iran. I'm going to go Packers at Lions. Early game.
Busted.
Not much at stake here.
Wait, this schedule's rough if this is getting drafted, but I
Well,
can't.
We're going to
looking
pick
at
up the
my-
pace at this point.
I'm looking at
Yeah,
my
let's
a little
go.
bit here. I mean, look at the Lions still have a chance for the number 1 pick if the Jags ever, won that game against the Colts. I don't see that happening. But I guess we'll see how long. For me, it's like, how long did the Packers play? I guess you got Aaron Rodgers. He's practicing. It sounds like they're going to essentially be out there to start. Get a lead you think it's manageable and just roll, because there's no reason to put anyone in harm's way. I mean, longer projection, it's like David Bakhtiari is practicing. Jair Alexander has come back, at some point here. So they're getting healthier, and they've done all this with a bunch of guys not playing. So this is a nice little warm-up to what comes ahead. And I thought it was interesting that Aaron Rodgers said today, or it was at least comments that I read today, about Brian Gutekunst, that it's been a really nice fall and winter, that he appreciates his approach, how it's been.
Guti?
There we are. I think, Gregg mentioned the other night that just the way that Aaron Rodgers is talking, it sure sounds like he's sticking around. And I thought some of these comments might have sealed it. He said the grass is greener where you water it. I don't know if he got that out of one of his books, but he's using that.
Did you see that?
I hope you give credit to where he said that on the Adam Shine podcast.
That's right.
Exclusively.
Wait, Shine got Rodgers?
Yeah.
Shine got Rodgers, and I read those quotes.
Do it, Rockland County.
And he asked a good question there, about Gutekunst very specifically in their relationship. And yeah, he said he really appreciated how Gutekunst met him halfway. I don't know exactly what that meant, but that was promising for Packers fans for sure.
Did you see the thing that Rodgers, really doing a lot of media, by the way. Rodgers was doing his weekly spot on the Pat McAfee show, and he told McAfee that he put the Atlas Shrugged book in his background and referenced it just to trigger people who he thought would go after him, as they then predictably did. Did you see that?
I did. I think it would have helped if we had caught that before our Tuesday discussion, but that was a next level troll move there that seemed to get the desired effect by Rodgers.
Right.
Gregg, the floor is yours.
That was news. That's news to me. I didn't hear that. That seems like just something you would say after the fact, don't you think? Too like he has put himself out there politically as like a libertarian and a Joe Rogan fan and stuff. And that book is like a Bible to libertarians and the political views.
Listen, we don't need to relitigate it.
We need to go down this road
I'm
again.
saying he seems like a person who is lost enough to, because he feels small in that moment, then to make up a new thing and say like, I did that to trigger people.
So you're calling him a liar.
Well, I mean, that is obvious. He says lies
Say
publicly
Say
all
Aaron
the
Rodgers
time.
is a liar. So Ricky could pull that quote. For
No,
the show.
we don't want to make
On cue, Gregg.
news.
Here, go now. 3, 2, 1. Say it.
And Gregg.
He has deliberately misled the public about his Ayn Rand views.
Is it Ein? Is that what it is?
I think it is. Yeah, I'm not sure, but
Great.
yeah.
All right, that's good. Good talking that game. Let's move on.
Tagline. Hertz rental vehicle taken out by laser fire.
I hate that game. How do you pick that game?
Where is
I mean,
laser
that's-
technology at, by the way?
Well,
Didn't
that's a
you
good
think by
question.
now, by 2022, there'd be a bunch of soldiers just like eviscerating each other with laser fire? And
Yeah.
I don't want to see war.
It
I don't,
seems like it
that's not
never
my
really
thing.
it never really advanced past like the guy with the laser pointer in the stands at football games that occasionally annoys a ref's
Like,
eye.
I want my lasers. Santa brought the boys a Nintendo Classic. It's like a mini Nintendo that comes loaded with 30 of the classic games, and I've probably played it more than them. And Contra is one of the games, and its follow-up, its 1990 sequel, Super Contra. I mean, these are great games. They had lasers in that shit, and lasers were absolutely, you want to take care of some aliens, you shoot your laser gun, which had to be earned. You had to work up to get to the laser. I would just say, like, the U.S. military in all its might, at some point, if we could develop laser tech,
Yeah.
maybe we won't have to worry about ISIS anymore. Maybe we won't have to worry about, certain military skirmishes going sideways.
Yeah, and I think you're also, to the super contra point, you're telling aliens or alien technology, like, we're on your level. Like, we can bring a weapon that you can respect, right? Which we are unable to do, according to what we know.
Instead, they come down in the UFOs and they just look at our military facilities and laugh. No lasers.
We're a laughing stock.
Still no lasers.
Right.
Humans have no lasers. And they go back to the other galaxy. New Year's resolution for the United States military. More lasers. All right, Gregg.
I'm up. Let's wrap up with Steelers Ravens.
Gregg sits out the laser discourse.
I didn't have much to add. I thought it was fun. Some of these you got to let the heavy hitters take the ball here. Steelers Ravens. What a rivalry. What a matchup. I think this is going to be a game where everyone in the AFC North gets a moral victory. Even the Browns maybe this week with Case Keenum playing against the Bengals backups. We haven't gotten to that game yet, but I think this game matters more to the Ravens. I think they felt like the Steelers, that they kind of won their playoff game on Monday night. It's a short week. There's no Deontay Johnson. He's on the COVID list. Their starting center, who they were also without Monday night, so they're used to that. Kendrick Green also onto the COVID list for Pittsburgh. And I just think the Ravens are a little bit better of a team anyways, in that they have a better quarterback right now. I liked what their defense did last week in terms of playing against type, playing very conservatively, got the running game going, which should work against the Steelers. I mean, why not just lock this game up? Why not? Let's lock up the Ravens.
Oh, you're locking them up.
Forgot about the locks, and this seems nice.
All right, you are not alone on this one. Let's check in with Wessling Lock Company.
Hello, heroes. It's Nick, and I'm back after a 3-week hiatus. Last week, you guys mentioned Phil has done the last 3 weeks and is getting a little stale. I want to apologize for leaving you with the boring brother. You aren't the only ones asking where the rest of us are. People reached out from all over asking, "What happened, Nick? Where are you? We can't listen to the monotone sounds of your brother anymore. And by the way, what happened to Tim and Larry? We loved them. And I thought Chris had 6 brothers. Do the other 2 even exist? People want answers. First, I can confirm there are 6 brothers. Second, I reached out to the other 4. Ed, Tim, Larry, and Mike. They issued a joint statement which reads as follows. No longer will the 4 of us allow the oppressive ATN podcast use our voices without proper compensation. The downloads of said podcast have consistently increased since the Wessling brothers have lent their voices without even a hint of monetary recompense. Close quote. What the hell is monetary recompense? What the hell is going on? Who are these people? First NIL deals in the NCAA? Now this? I don't even know what's going on. But it did get me thinking, should I join in this boycott of the podcast?
Where's the
I want to
Sandman?
get paid too. Screw it. We're taking the Ravens over the Steelers. Lock it up.
All right.
Guys, let's hope 22 is better than 21.
Hey.
Wow.
Here's to that.
From your lips to God's ears, my friend.
Well, they've
Love
become
Nick
difficult.
Wessling.
They're becoming more difficult.
That's good, though. They need, it's important that they understand their value and their employer or the people that provide the platform respond to that and take care of them.
They've also done a terrible thing because it's like you're going to get paid a certain amount of money, but you're going to have to split it between like 200 people. It's like that
Many brothers.
I mean, it's too many. For it
What's
to be the
0
money
divided by 6? What is that?
Well,
0 by 6, carry the 1. Oh, you're getting nothing, Nick.
We do give them a international platform.
That's
to
big.
give people an insight into just this wacky world. That's like, first you get that, then you have Lifetime or whatever coming to you to do like, how about, the Wahlburgers, that the Wahlberg family opening up a hamburger business. What if we do it with the Wesslings? Like that, we're providing you the platform to gain a higher level of notoriety. Like, does that have value?
that's pay enough, I would think.
That's fair.
I tend to think it does.
They're a lot like the Wahlburgers. If You're just missing like the international movie star and the member of like one of the biggest boy bands ever. But other than that, there's
a couple Donnies in there. I wouldn't say there's a Marc.
I don't see a Marc.
All right, Marc, I see you with a tagline.
Tagline. Here we go.
Ricky was late on the cue, and Marc gave an eye roll. That was good.
Well, we knew it would happen, but she's done an exemplary job. Tagline: chewing on plums from the seventh dimension.
Chewing on plums from the seventh dimension. That one feels like classic Sessler nonsense. I don't think there's any way to tie that to the game.
No, unless JJ or TJ Watt were to, somehow get the sack record. Maybe we'd all be doing that.
This game does have something at stake. We should just point out the scenario for the Ravens, because the Ravens have not been knocked out. They need to win. They need the Jaguars to beat the Colts. They need the Pats to beat the Dolphins. And they need the Raiders to beat the Chargers. The Jags part obviously is important to the Steelers too. The Steelers stay alive if the Jags beat the Colts and the Steelers win this game.
That's it.
Crazier things have happened than the Steelers, winning this game and making the playoffs. The Ravens are really counting on a lot, including those Jaguars. But if they got the first one, it put a little extra juice even into that Sunday night game.
The most simple or the most likely outcome, of course, is that the Colts are blowing out the Jaguars in the second quarter, and this game also 1 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. Everyone knows it, and by the second half, it's just like, all right, see you later, Big Ben.
Like Harbaugh, and I don't know. I feel like they want something to celebrate here. This is kind of their Super Bowl after all these close losses against pretty good teams. Get this win, and at least you feel a little better.
I don't need another week of Pittsburgh, but we are in that reach of that 8-1 scenario. Just to track that.
So what do we need? We need a loss.
Yeah,
that's it.
I mean, that you talk about things that are very doable. The Steelers losing this game is very doable, and we have
all
that
in front of you,
magical result.
All right, finally. I'm thinking about the show, of course, but I can't imagine bringing myself to watch Chicago at Minnesota or Washington at Giants. I just can't do it. So I will grab, and I'm surprised it's still here, but I know Nick Shook will have eyes on it, but I want to watch New Orleans at Atlanta. Because this is fun. Gregg, you love the NFC South. You love the Saints, and the Falcons rivalry is nasty. Those fan bases do not like each other at all. And I think back to after 28-3, Mardi Gras in New Orleans was a couple days later, and it went viral that they actually had the young and the ringless Mardi Gras float in New Orleans, and a big picture is it was a artistic rendering of Matt Ryan's face and Julio Jones's face. The Saints, completely devoid of any Super Bowl heroism themselves, out of the playoffs by that point. No Super Bowl ring. It was the Patriots, of course, who won the Lombardi that year. And yet they had a parade float celebrating the Falcons' lowest moment in the history of their franchise. Fast forward to the present. Now Atlanta, you're a bad team. We all know you're a bad team. But you've won a lot of close games. And you have a chance here to just absolutely break the hearts of the Saints Nation. Get some revenge. Get petty as hell. Go for it in your building. Knock off the Saints.
And their season. No Kyle Pitts in practice this week is a big concern. This offense is limited. We saw it when they were without Cordarrelle Patterson, how just taking one piece away, because to me, Patterson, Gage, and Pitts are the entire offense, and that hurts. And the Falcons, one of those close wins was against the Saints earlier this season. But I think what's different about this Saints defense now that wasn't the case early in the year was their pass rush is just so much better now. Cam Jordan went from just very quiet for half a season to wreck and shop. Davenport's out of practice, but he's been amazing, and that good of a pass rush with this much to play for. I just think there's a much better chance than people realize of the Saints playing on Wild Card Weekend, even if no one wants to see it. Because I kind of wish I locked this game up. Maybe I will. Let's switch it. I don't even know.
Doesn't matter. You're going to get it wrong.
It doesn't matter. Exactly. I keep switching it. I think they're going to win this game. And And I think the 49ers are 50-50 at best. They're an underdog in Los Angeles, and that's all the Saints need to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, their path is as clear as anyone's. And I think Atlanta and Arthur Smith, I give them credit for the close games they've won, that they've hung around, and they've done it kind of week after week with, you never had Calvin Ridley at post-London game. You've been compromised. I mean, Cordero Patterson fried the Saints and kind of beguiled that defense the first time they met. And I don't think that has a chance of happening, again, just because the Saints defense is rounded into such a nasty being, but also if Kyle Pitts isn't in there, I don't know, you just don't have the bodies. And they can't stop the run. So, I mean, I don't like this New Orleans offense on any level. I mean, we get that they're super compromised. They've scored like 30 points in 3 weeks. But that said, maybe you can run the ball against a terrible run defense and win a game like, 15-9 or something. That's how I see these Saints games.
I'm keeping my eye on this one too. I knew Shook was, so I still am going to. I mean, I know you would. I gotta watch this. Taysom's been better. You guys used to be on the Taysom corner, and I was against it. Now I almost think he's getting pooped on too much. He's been okay.
I'm Taysom agnostic. I've never had a real Taysom.
I just like him in the role he was before, where he added a lot of creativity and juice to the offense.
It was you and Wes versus me, I guess, back in the day.
But Wes would also look at this and say he's played himself out of starting quarterback conversation at this point. Outside of the outrageous contracts they keep giving him.
Getting a little better, though, is what I'm trying to say.
This is a great lock, Greg. It is too little too late for you, but it's still, I think this is money in the bank. I don't know, maybe the Rainmakers involved here? I don't know, because the Saints have allowed less than 10 points a game for the last 4 weeks. The Falcons' offense stinks. Now, Kyle Pitts did return to practice on Thursday in a limited fashion, but that's a hamstring. It's late in the season. We'll see if he plays or how much he plays or if he's able to stay on the field. I just think this is going to be a game where the Falcons are going to have a lot of trouble scoring 10 points. And as much as I don't love the Taysom Hill-led Saints offense, I think the urgency of it all, yes, this feels like a 24-9 type win. Maybe Matt Ryan's last game as a Falcon. Probably not. But something to keep an eye on there. We haven't really heard much about that recently, but they seem to be a team that could go in a different direction as Arthur Smith goes into year 2. But I do like the Saints a lot here. And then they need help, as you said. We'll see if they get it. All right. Got few more games to get to, and then we'll hit the Sunday Night Football. All right.
Need a little tagline action.
Tagline,
I hate to interrupt, but...
Yeah, no, I've been doing it one way for like 20 years, so I'm not used to the tagline, so don't take it. It doesn't mean I don't want to hear it. I really do. I just forget.
I also told you, minutes before the show that this was, anyways, the tagline is head of Cabbage Patch doll found in gutter.
Doesn't sound good for the Falcons.
No, you can read into that one.
Fans, fill that building. I know you probably don't want to or don't plan to, and it's going to be a lot of Saints fans there, but fill that building and get some revenge. This is your chance.
They're not filling that building. Spoiler
probably
alert.
not. Probably not. That's why I'm trying to implore them to, Greg, and really make life hard for the Saints who have designs on a playoff berth. All right, let's take a break and then finish the games. All right, here we go. Let's hit the AFC North here. The Bengals at the Browns. This game means nothing because Cincinnati is not going to play Joe Burrow. They're not playing Joe Mixon. The Browns aren't playing Baker Mayfield. Case Keenum finally gets in the lineup and the season's over. That annoys me. But that's the road they decided to go down. So there is a possibility here, Marc, with Baker going under the knife, that he's already played his final game as a Brown. I still don't believe it. Greg feels the other side. Do you want it to be? Do you want it to be over?
No, I don't. I was thinking about that there were, for all the ups and downs with Baker and some of the poor play that I just think it's who he is, that there have been moments that have been the best quarterback play the Browns have had in 20-something years. I mean, he looked as a rookie like the next big thing. And I thought that what he did last year, it kind of to me as a Browns fan, it's like, for instance, today, Mary Kay Cabot put out a story basically saying that Baker Mayfield must resolve his differences with Kevin Stefanski soon if they want to coexist next season. It was the tweet. And then Baker.
Wait, read Baker's tweet. Read his reply on Twitter.
I will read his response. He quote tweeted her and said, "Clickbait. You and many other Cleveland local media continue to be drama-stirring reporters with no source or facts. Don't put words in my mouth so you can put food on your table. I'm not your puppet. Now I like the wording. I like his tweet ability, but it just kind of, because at one point Brandon Whedon of all people quote tweeted Baker Mayfield to say, stuff about Mary Kay Cabot that he
the
had
guy
dealt
that got
with
lost
too.
under the American flag before his first game.
They found him. He's emerged, and I mean, in this scenario of all things, so it kind of just takes you back to the darkest possible place where Cleveland is dysfunctional. If anything, it's the contrast of who you're playing this week. The team that had been more dysfunctional, you inside of your own state, the only bragging rights you had. And the Bengals do have something to play for. They can still get the number 1 seed if a bunch of other stuff happens. But they look to me like the next big thing in the AFC, which is what Cleveland was meant to be and cannot get out of their own way.
Am I wrong? Is Joe Burrow maybe playing?
No, he's out.
So they don't care.
They don't care about the game. Well, they know, too, the Chiefs will...
They'll know what's up Saturday night, too.
Yeah, they'll clinch being ahead of the Bengals in the standings. Now, they can and probably will fall from the 3 to the 4. And then if, like, the AFC favorites, East favorites won, or if the Bills won, that basically locks in a Bengals-Patriots game. So that's interesting, just that, not that they're going to try to, like, set up their opponent, but they will fall in the standings. The Baker thing, though, I don't love him hitting out at Mary Kay that much, because ultimately she's reporting something, which she also did about a month ago. And one thing you left out, Marc, was that she said that, he might request a trade if things don't get cleaned up. She's reporting what Michael Silver said on our air a year ago in the offseason, actually, which was kind of like that he liked the idea of Alex Van Pelt as the play caller more than Kevin Stefanski for whatever reason. She's not coming. It's not coming out of nowhere. She's been doing that job for 20-something years. She's getting that information from somewhere. It's probably not a secret to Kevin Stefanski. They're probably very annoyed to see these reports. Now, whether it's from Baker Mayfield's camp or not, who knows? Maybe it's something that's just been passed around, but it's very possibly from Baker Mayfield's camp that the information is even coming or started to go around in the first place. So it reminds me a little bit of the Russell Wilson stuff last year, where he starts blaming the media for things that his agent literally put up. Now, that was on the record. This is not, who knows who her sources are. But I ultimately trust that she didn't make it up. And that the sources
I don't think she made it up.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
no,
it seems like an
a
easy
mutual
thing.
split.
Right. If anything, I think the Browns will be ready to move on if they at all can. And Baker, he's in his feelings right now, which is totally understandable considering where he's at.
Tagline, Marc.
Nobody knows about my hidden second apartment.
Oh, wow.
That's just like a fact. Yeah.
Well, no,
that's
it's
just
not.
Marc wishcasting about a reality that
I
he
don't
wishes
have.
was closer to
Financially,
his
that's
own.
an impossibility. But it's just
You did have that motel for a little while early in.
Oh my God!
Right, that's right.
Greg, can you even
quarantine.
imagine? Let's say we got paid, in like the reach of the show is how we got paid. Imagine Marc's other apartment. I mean, where would it be? Is it in LA? Is it in the outskirts of the city? Is it up in Malibu, like a little shack? He obviously has a second residence that's just for him. But where is it? That's the question.
I think it would be in the Hollywood regions to some degree, the vibrant part of the city.
In the hills.
Oh, you want to be where
in the
you want to be
Hollywood
where the
Hills.
action is.
Yes. But it's not. It couldn't be
Watch
farther
out there,
from a
buddy.
reality.
Yes.
It's like I'm eating
I want
like
it
pizza
desperately.
crust off my children's plate. That's
Do you
the
really
reality.
want to be the 46-year-old guy married to 2 kids that gets the apartment in Hollywood to be where the action is? I mean, what?
Yeah, I do. But I also would say that it wouldn't be a secret. I would invite many people around to it. It would just be a second like operation center.
Like I love that too, but I understand where I am in my life now, and not saying you don't. I'm just thinking of myself.
I definitely do not. So like
I
think
would
that's the
definitely.
contrast.
Mine would be the Malibu kind of little hideaway. It's very leafy. It's almost like, whoa, there's a place back there, and it's like my little place.
Yeah, but
when my
mine is
children
like-
will never see it.
Mine is super chill and like looking down over all of Los Angeles. I spent all of my life living down there, and now you'd be living high above it in the
You're
old
going up in the hills.
Hollywood Hills. Oh, I'm talking like
Gotcha.
Beverly Hills, Hollywood Hills intersection where you can just hear like a pin drop in the middle of the night.
Got it. So it's not like a
So it's
seedy
way better
apartment
than your
behind the Viper
actual
room.
place. It's way better than your actual place.
It would be way better.
Marc, where are you at these days? Oh, I'm right behind the Viper room. really loud and dangerous, but
Higher
in
up.
the mix.
Higher up in the hills, baby.
All right, let's move on. Bears, Vikings. Are both of these teams looking for new coaches in a week? Gregg.
Yes.
Wait, Black Monday's coming up. Darn. Shoot, we haven't even thought about that reality.
It's going to be busy. Next week will be busy. Kirk Cousins is back. Justin Fields is not. He's on the COVID list. Andy Dalton's going to start again, it looks like.
Good timing, Kirk. Way to go, bud. Got to be kidding me, dude.
Doesn't it
Be
feel
a
like
winner.
it feels like the game the Vikings are going to win like 40-10 and show us how much potential they had?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's meaningless.
This was the worst primetime game of the year about 4 weeks ago. You remember Bears Vikings?
I thought about locking this game, and there's like, no. That's just a residual echo of when I liked the Vikings, and I thought they were capable of doing special things. But it also is very on brand that the Vikings, like Marc's saying, would absolutely savage the Bears, and Kirk would pad the hell out of his stats to get to 34, 35 touchdowns, and Jefferson would go over 200, and it wouldn't mean a damn thing, but it would definitely help Kirk Cousins, bargaining when he gets back to the table, whenever that may be.
I think Kirk is more likely to be back with the Vikings than Zimmer, but they could easily both be gone.
What about Kirk Cousins on the Browns, Marc?
I've seen little reports about like that would be one of the
Stefanski guy.
I know, but
That's an upgrade.
You know what kind of quarterbacks I like and don't like, and if they take the team that I grew up with and stick Kirk Cousins on it, it's a hard out.
I don't want to put you in a tough position because I know this is a naughty question, but Kirk Cousins or Deshaun Watson, who do you want?
Well, from a player angle, the answer is easy. I think that I would rather the Browns.
That's not the conversation.
I mean, I don't know. Like if Deshaun Watson was found to have done nothing, which will not happen, I would want Deshaun Watson. I don't really like that for the Browns because it will probably turn ugly anyways. He's not going to want to go there. And what does it say about in the front office that I thought highly of? I'd rather just stay away from that, to be honest.
Yeah, my thing is Stefanski's not going anywhere. This front office isn't going anywhere. Neither one of them brought in Baker. That's part of the equation.
They tried to make it work.
Tagline.
Self-realization on Al-Qaeda Avenue.
All right. I think I followed that one. Washington football team, the last game as the football team. Maybe they announced. Now that would be an amazing troll job, Gregg, if they do this whole build up to the February 2nd reveal, and it's like, we're keeping the name, bitches. I don't think that happens.
I mean, I would like that, but man, I don't think many people would. That would be the equivalent of your rails collapsing and you falling all over your fans. I don't know.
Are both of these teams, Marc, replacing their head coach in a week, or looking to?
Well, no, Washington, I think, is absolutely dug in with Ron Rivera, and I think that he is as important a head coach in terms of what he does as anyone in the league because, there's directionless without him. So, no, the Giants, I think the Giants, because we talked about with Matt Rule, it was just keep your head down, get out of this season, and don't do anything else that becomes like a meme or goes wild. Like the Joe Judge speech from, coming out of last week is exactly what we're talking about. He looks nutty to most people and disengaged, and he's making claims about the Giants that don't on any way line up with the product we've been seeing for years on end.
I'm looking at the NFL Research Week 18 notes, which is a great tool in my position, and they usually have a breakdown of the schedule and where they rank in various team rankings, and then below it the first category, storylines, and then they usually have 3 different storylines that all things to keep an eye on in the game. For this game, it's just one bullet, and the bullet reads as follows: matchup of eliminated NFC East foes.
Well, it's like a could always be worse game. I mean, I think Washington's gonna wipe the floor with the Giants. I'm not gonna rainmaker this, but I do like the Washington to win by a lot. It's like they're gonna feel good about themselves because they're not the Giants. They are keeping their coach. They are a more functional football team at the moment. They have a much better quarterback. You're right that Judge Rant, I think had the exact opposite impact of what he intended. Like
Right.
Will Brinson and Bill Barnwell on Bill Barnwell's podcast did an entire podcast just breaking down that press
That's what you
conference,
don't want to happen.
which is like hilarious and a great idea, great content. But it's just like it's just a disaster. At one point during that rant, I'd missed this the first time around. He said he was on a staff where everyone was the 2018 staff, which he was on the Patriots, where everyone was getting ready to fire us. We were all gonna be on our way out, but we stuck together and we rallied, and then we won the Super Bowl. I was like, what? You had just made it to 2 straight Super Bowls, and you had a pretty good record the whole time. I mean, it was never like a disastrous. So he's literally just like making things up.
Your boy from the Boston Globe, Ben Volin, did chime in on that and said that there's a lot of behind the scenes menace that season around the Patriots.
I don't care.
I'm just saying. I'm just throwing in some facts from somebody that was there, boots on the ground.
It's just like stretching. Just why are you talking about this stuff?
He shouldn't have. Yeah. I hope we see Will Brinson here in LA for the Super Bowl. CBS doesn't send Will. I
hope we see the Super Bowl here in LA in the Super Bowl.
It's like I don't even want to talk about that storyline. But you're right. All right, tagline, Mark. Little slow, like a beat slow, Ricky. Let's clean it up with the tags.
Okay, tagline. Man asks wife, "Do I look fat in these jeans?"
The man asked the wife.
Yeah,
that.
see, no, because I didn't go. You shouldn't say. It's like the man is asking if he appears that way.
Have you asked Simone if you've ever looked fat in jeans? Have you ever asked her that?
I don't know about fat, but I've occasionally asked, like, does this match with this? And I wouldn't call either one of us
different.
like fashionistas. And sometimes there's not a very clear answer, and I might have to think about going elsewhere for feedback on that front.
Taking shots at Simone's fashionista.
I lack skills in many areas, and we all, as humans, we all sometimes do, and we have skills in other areas. Different needs.
Carolina at Tampa Bay.
Final one, right?
This is the last one before Sunday Night Football. The Panthers are one of the very worst teams in football, led by Sam Darnold, who is not juicing the offense. It's a big old mess. Matt Rule, another guy who could be in a little bit of trouble here. We'll see how the offseason shakes out. The Bucs, of course, coming off that big comeback win over the Jets. And let me just check in here. The Bucs enter Week 18 at 12-4. They're the 3 seed in the NFC. They can move up to the 2 seed with a win and a Rams loss to the Niners. So that is in play.
And I think that could matter to them. The NFC, I think all these teams should want to win because the Rams are just such a possible L in Week 18, and they play in the late afternoon window at the same time as this game. And getting a 2 seed for a team that's undefeated at home and is a pass happy team in like warm weather, to me that totally matters rather than possibly getting stuck at the 4 seed and going to Green Bay. So I think Tom Brady will play a lot of this game, maybe play the entire game, and that they'll be careful with guys who are already hurt. I mean, Shaq Barrett's going to be out again. JPP's out. Levante David's been out. They definitely miss those guys. But otherwise, I think the Bucs are going to try to win this game, and they should. They've beaten the Bucs, the Panthers under Matt Rule by at least 20 points every time they've played them. So that's a pretty good little.
Well, and if you look at Tampa's home and away splits, like there's something real to it. We have a full season to look at it, and I think they absolutely want every possible home advantage they can have versus going to unfriendly weather. I mean, this should be a layup for them. Like if you look at, I know they're banged up and everyone talks about that, but right, Robbie Anderson was not practicing Thursday. Terrace Marshall's on IR. Sheath Smith is on the COVID list. It's like DJ Moore and a bunch of maybe like practice squad guys catching passes from a quarterback who's totally inept behind a terrible offensive line. So if you can go do what Tom Brady did on that final drive with the guys he was throwing to, I see no problem with them taking care of business here in a game that only puts the Carolina Panthers in deeper darkness. 7 losses in a row to close the season would be as ugly as one could imagine.
This will be a slaughter. The Bucs will take care of business. They, of course, were a wild card last year and won 3 road games to get to the Super Bowl, which was played in their building in Tampa. So they can win at home or on the road, but you're right. You always want to play in your building when you can. Just to put a button on the Antonio Brown melodrama, Brown came out and said, the reason why I left is because I was essentially fired on the sideline for refusing to go back in the game on a bad ankle. And he's been all over with a long statement on Instagram, all very exhausting. But that was his side of the story. And then Bruce Arians came in for his press conference on Thursday and gave his side of it, which sounded very much like the truth. Let's hear that.
Obviously, we let Antonio go today. Just to clear you up on some things that happened. At no point in time during that game did he ever ask the trainer or doctor about his ankle. He never went through. That's the normal protocol. You go through protocols during games. I was never notified of it. So obviously that was the disturbing thing when we were looking for him to go back into the game. All right, we always had. He was very upset at halftime about who was getting targeted. Got that calmed down. Players took care of that. It started again on the sideline. We called for the personnel group that he had played in the entire game. He refused to go in the game. That's when I looked back and saw him basically wave off the coach. I then went back, approached him about what was going on. I ain't playing. What's going on? I ain't getting the ball. That's when I said, "You're done. Get the F out of here." And that's the end of it. And we're working on Carolina. That's the end of the story. And hopefully it ends today.
I guess that's the price. They're paying the price now. The bill always comes due. An old Francesa-ism. The bill came due here for the Bucs, and they're having to do this ugly cleanup. And now it certainly seems as if Brown is going to enter into some type of litigation to try to get his money from the Bucs. So they're paying the price for getting in bed and being loyal to a guy who's never been loyal to anyone but himself. That's where we're at.
Yeah, they cut him officially too. I don't doubt any of that particular sequence as it happened during the game. I don't doubt, Brown brought in all this stuff that he was playing through torn ligaments and felt pressured to play, which a lot of NFL players kind of feel in general, and he's going to have surgery. Like, I don't doubt that he was playing injured, but it seems pretty clear that if players are having to calm him down because he's not getting enough targets during the game, that whatever you're talking about with the injury message and that you never called the trainer over gets totally muddled. Plus, we had feet on the ground in the Meadowlands last week by special Around the NFL correspondent Mike Berkowitz, who said he was about 5 rows up watching this whole thing, and he said Bruce Arians did not do a throat slash gesture like Antonio Brown said, that he pointed to the locker room, which you can see in the video too. He points to the locker room like, go to the locker room, you're done here.
Well, and one little thing, it's like Antonio Brown is on Instagram calling out Alex Guerrero, Brady's TB12 guy, but also
he deleted
calling
that
out Brady.
stuff.
Right, I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
like it's the
good.
classic thing where he is hitting out at the people that, if anything, try to support him. And so it is. You're right. The bill has come due. You could argue. I'm not saying that they won a Super Bowl because of him, but he was a contributor to that. I would think that from a football angle, cool. But at this point, like, this is not that shocking, and I hope we don't discuss this guy again for a while. I'm
right.
tired.
It's on Brady, though. To be fair, I mean, it really, he didn't face too much tough question on it. It's like, Brown was kind of his responsibility. He pretty clearly strong-armed Arians, who had a terrible track record with him, into doing it. And yeah, it worked for a while, and then it didn't work. And now he's saying that Alex Guerrero, Brady's trainer, didn't do anything for the $100,000 that Brown gave him. And it's like, oh, this is what you get.
Tagline, Marc.
Is this a... Was that a bit to make me wait? Okay. Please give me a domestic chore to accomplish.
We're getting back into the realm of the uncomfortably sensual.
Well, it could be...
Or just the grievances of Frustrated man.
Or just take out the
Frustrated middle-aged
trash, please.
family man. Finally, Sunday Night Football. Oh, Sunday night, the Chargers. Here we go, Superchargers. It's all in front of you. A star-crossed franchise, an organization with a fan base that's understandably fatalistic. And you look at this game and you say, oh, man, we're going to Vegas. They've won 3 in a row. It's a win and in. This is the first true playoff game. Even if it's not officially a playoff game, this is the play-in game like they have in the NCAA. The play-in game to get into the bracket. That's what this is, Chargers, Raiders. And I'll start right here, boys. Chargers are the better team. The Chargers are the better quarterback. I've watched every one of the Raider games this year. I wrote them off a month ago. I was wrong, but I also, it's important that we have some nuance to this conversation about the Raiders. They get absolutely stomped by the Chiefs. They're cooked with the Browns going to Cleveland. The Browns get absolutely savaged by COVID and injury and all that. They somehow steal that game. And then they do it essentially 2 more times, getting breaks every step of the way. This 3-game winning streak, as much as it's been commendable, even the Colts win. You're getting Carson Wentz and all the drama around the COVID diagnosis and just making it back into the lineup. What was the week before that? What was the break they caught?
Well, they got Drew Lock, basically. I mean, I don't know if it's an argument for Teddy Bridgewater, but they got a defunct Broncos.
They got Drew Lock, who hasn't won a game in his whole life, it feels like. I'm probably wrong about that, but I'm sure he doesn't have a ton of wins. So in my mind, the Raiders are fugazi. In my mind, the Chargers are going to have a moment here. In my mind, with the lock championship within sights, I'm locking up the Chargers to take care of business.
Nice.
Football
Like that.
gods be damned.
You know what I'm going to do? Because I was going to lock a different team, but I at this point, I have to throw the Hail Mary to even stay alive in this. I don't believe they're going to win. I'm just doing this for weirdness. I'm locking the Raiders just to see what happens.
Very interesting. I think I guess it would be a sensible play. I'd love to hear what the analytics community would say about this, because you're 2 games back right now.
You're only 2 back?
Ahead.
I think
he's only 2 back.
Is it okay?
And if I win a lock off here, it's pretty much a wrap. It's almost like this is the Super Bowl of the lock championship. And if that's the case, I do like my chances.
Well, I think it's, let's continue to add juice where we can to week 18. I know I could take it, for 3 more
You're
weeks.
You're 3 games back, Mark.
I'm 3 back. So
it's 3.
I'm 3. So it's like, I have to be honest, like, our organization behind the scenes is we're looking towards the off season on one level. It's felt there's been a calm not having to worry about the locks. But if this occurs, I'm 2 back and I'm going to take a different strategy in the playoffs.
Right, because there are 5 playoff weeks, and those are not necessarily easy games to pick either. The Raiders aren't huge underdogs here, so it's not a crazy idea. They're 3-point underdogs. It feels like the right line for this game when the Chargers are the road team, and the Chargers are the better team overall. But I do think if they could get it, to the latter stages of the fourth quarter, I'm not worried about like the Chargers mojo. I know they had a tough loss against the Chiefs, but they've had some good late wins too. But I do think the Raiders have a positive late game mojo that could matter here, that they feel confident in their quarterback and the way they've closed games out. That would really help them if they're in a spot where they get the ball down 4, with a couple minutes to play. At that point, I would be worried if I'm backing the Chargers, and I am hoping the Chargers win this game. They just got to attack. You look at the Raiders cornerbacks. They're playing Brandon Faison. He's a guy who couldn't make the Chargers. He was like their 6th cornerback. And they're playing Desmond Trufant, whose career was all but over. These are their cornerbacks. And you got Justin Herbert. You got an aggressive play caller. I think this is a game where they hand it to Herbert, and he's going to throw it about 45 times, and they're going to see if the Raiders can keep up. Because in this whole Raiders winning streak, everything's been 20-16, 23-20, 16-14, games like that. And if the Chargers can put up a lot of points, I don't think the Raiders can keep up. I'm with you, Dan.
You poll every AFC playoff team and ask them which team they want to win this. They don't want the Los Angeles Chargers in the playoffs because on the right day, I think they could puncture anyone. The Raiders, I see them like as the team I'd much rather less see one more week of. Although I give Derek Carr, I mean, he's kind of tugged them this whole way. You know, this has not been a full job like those other seasons. It's a different narrative.
They missed Corey Linsley last week. The Chargers have a Pro Bowl center in Corey Linsley. He was not out, and what's been a strength for them or a big improvement in terms of their offensive line looked a little leaky. That could be a bit of a problem for them this week.
Yeah. Unless the Chargers offense completely shoots itself in the foot and doesn't show up, or COVID steps up and rears its ugly head, I just don't like the Raiders. As good as the defense has been the last 3 weeks, and again, the opponent has to be factored into that. Since the Week 8 bye, here are their point totals. This is how much they've scored. 16, 14, 13. You had the 36 against Dallas on Thanksgiving. And then 15, 9, 16, 17, 23. They just can't score.
Waller is practicing, which is huge. If they can,
but he's also not just the injury;
Waller.
He's coming off COVID. And again, we're seeing these guys coming off COVID. You can't just pencil them in to immediately be impact guys.
Yeah, Bosa too said, who is coming off COVID and is unvaccinated, said he was struggling to get his breath back this week. He admitted it in practice while accepting the Good Guy Award for sportsmanship in dealing with the Los Angeles media. So applaud Joey Bosa for that.
And by the way, sportsmanship, there is a soundbite if you go back to the first meeting between these two teams where Bosa goes out of his way to titanically bury Derek Carr. And he makes a comment along the lines of, we know he's had a good year, but we know the way that guy is. If we put a little pressure on him, he goes into a shell, like just savaging Carr and calling him out essentially as a weak professional football player. And I'm saying I like that stuff. I think there's not enough of that in sports anymore. Just players mixing it up and having fun and just, you're playing football here. But it certainly was notable because I remember Carr, when he was asked about it, he was like, whoa, did this guy watch the wrong game? Because in the first matchup, the Raiders came on strong at the end of the game. They didn't fade as things went. It was what was the final of that game? It was a 28-14 loss to the Chargers. So
that was that lightning delay game. I do like that Bosa didn't back off it too much this week. He was just like, yeah, I just think he kind of goes into a shell when he gets hit, like a lot of quarterbacks.
Right.
It's like, okay, all right.
Very interesting.
He's
all
right. I mean, he's probably right?
Mark, that's huge. That's the championship right there.
Yeah. No, I reserve the right to change my pick, but I don't see myself changing.
I think that's
it at
smart.
all.
I think the analytics would say that's a good strategy.
It is.
It's a 3-point spread. You're down 3 with 6 to go.
No, it was
got
much
to be
more
aggressive.
It was much more controversial if it was 2 games. But once you said it was 3, yes, that it does feel like it is time to hit the emergency lever. In this case, back the Raiders and their Fugazi winning streak. So I feel good about this. How about a tagline?
Kitty bites.
Oh, yeah. You knew he's saving that one for the
Gross. So gross.
Why is it gross?
It's gross.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Erica says it. I don't find it gross. But when you do.
Oh. Well, I don't think in general it's something that I would.
Ricky, can you
say
jump
to
on and
you
say kitty
personally.
bites for
I
me?
think the way that your
say,
eyes looked as you said,
let's
you're
clear
like,
the floors, clear the
kitty
runway.
I am
bites.
learning to read these lines.
Everybody clear the runway. Erica, I'm doing a test. It's an A/B test. Mark, you go first. Say it again.
Kitty bites.
That's not how it
No,
works.
that's not how you said
You
it.
have to say it the way you said it.
Kitty bites.
Kitty bites.
All right, now Ricky.
Okay, Dan, close your eyes.
Okay.
Ooh, kitty bites.
Obviously, that's preferable.
Thank you, Ricky.
Obviously.
Gorgeous, gorgeous girls love to say kitty bites.
That's a W for Hollywood. All right, that's it. That is week 18. That is the first ever week 18 preview. How about that?
Well, it's the longest season ever. It's the longest preview show ever. I don't know what it is about us at home. We're just can't stop talking. We're lonely men who need to get back together.
We want to get back in the studio. We're just waiting for the go-ahead, just so everybody knows. We haven't been given the clearance yet. But once we do, we'll be back together in person. But that's not happening yet. All right. Anything else? Oh, no TV show this week. Also COVID related. The We're working on the show is going to be back for sure next Friday, hour-long format, breaking down each of the playoff rounds. So make sure you check in the DVR next Friday. If you don't see it on the DVR, or you're here in like the West Coast, for instance, and you get up at 3:58 a.m. and you put a pot of coffee on the kettle there, and then you go to sit down and watch your favorite football show, it's not coming on.
Now, don't panic.
Don't panic. Don't throw your coffee on the ground. Don't scream and run into the street half nude. Just understand we'll be back next Friday.
Peter Schrager's son is going to be very disappointed by this development.
Well, you show him a repeat, because our true fans will go back and watch what we had to say in week 11, perhaps, or prior to that.
All right, good stuff. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday. Enjoy the football. Heed the call.